Om Shri Ganeshaya Namaha. Om Shri Saraswatyai Namaha. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahana Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavaditamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Samasta Jana Kalyane Niratam Karunamayam Namami Chinmayam Devam Sadgurum Brahmavidvaram. Om Parthaya Pratibodhita Bhagavata Narayanena Swayam Vyasena Kratitam Purana Munina Madhye Mahabharatam Advaitamritavarshini Bhagavati Ashtadashadhyayini Ambadvam Anusandadami Bhagavad Geeta Bhagavadveshini Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsachanuramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum. Hari. So firstly, I thank Geeta Ashram for having me here. It's an absolute pleasure to do chapter 1. Can you all hear me? That's better? Right. It's an absolute pleasure to be here to do chapter 1 and tomorrow chapter 2 also. Right. Okay, so just by a show of hands, how many have already heard chapter 1 before? Other places, different acharyas? How many people? Geeta Ashram. How many people are hearing it for the first time? Anybody? First time. Okay, 1 or 2 people. Okay. Right. So, I thought I'd do it slightly differently because usually people have already heard so many different lectures of the Gita. So you just come back and instead of me going through verse by verse, I thought we'd take it slightly differently and in a little bit more of an interactive format also. So if I've asked any questions, you can just shout out from where you are. Right. So first thing is, why study the Gita? Since I'm the first speaker, so I thought I'd give a short introduction, right? There's so many scriptures, so many things that we study, so many Upanishads are there, Brahma Sutras are there. So why Gita? So when you look at the study of Vedanta, we consider 3 sets of texts as what we call Prasthanatrayam, which is the authoritative texts for the study of Vedanta. So the first authoritative set of texts is what we call Upanishads, which are directly from the Vedas, right? So there are many Upanishads. 10 are famous because they are commented on by Bhagavan Sri Adi Shankaracharya and it's said to be terribly comprehensive. It has all the aspects, all the foundational building blocks of the Vedantic knowledge required for that full vision to express itself. And then we have the Bhagavad Geeta, written by Vyasji Maharaj. It's said to be the crowning glory of the Mahabharata. In fact, the whole Mahabharata is a tapestry set so that the Gita can be woven in between as the heart. And then we have the Brahma Sutras. The Brahma Sutras, again, a composition of Bhagavan Badarayana, which reconciles and comprehensively lays out all the knowledge which is available in the Upanishads. Because sometimes in the Upanishads it will say one way here and say another way there. Now how do we reconcile and understand it comprehensively? So through 555 aphorisms, Bhagavan Vyasa or Bhagavan Badarayana basically has done this full reconciliation. And that was a period in which there were many different schools of thoughts in Hinduism, in Sanatana Dharma itself. So Bhagavan actually refuted all the different or incorrect interpretations and he established the vision of Advaita Vedanta. But the Gita in particular, why is it so special? Because the Upanishadic students were extremely evolved already, highly intellectual. Viveka Vairagya, those of you who study Vedanta, you know Sadhana Chatushtaya. So Viveka Vairagya, the qualities that renders one fit to know the truth of infinitude, pakka, fully available. So they are all, we call floating beings who are literally ready to receive the knowledge. Tattvamasi, Aham Brahmasmi, job done. Now for us, even if we are given Tattvamasi, we will be like, can you please explain, right? So then, when the Gita is given to us, it sets it into the context where most of us belong. So most people can identify with Arjuna. So if you see the story of the Mahabharata, I mean, what a saga, right? Honestly, there's no greater epic when it comes to the Ramayana and the Mahabharata. You cannot see any greater epic available in the world. So when you see the betrayal and you see the relationships and you're like, oh my God, some of these things happen in my house. Huh? We all feel that, right? So we understand Arjuna. We identify with Arjuna, his ambitions, his betrayals, his disappointments, his desires. And you know, in this way, Arjuna is not a perfect person. And we identify with the weaknesses, we identify with the thoughts, right? So in this way, Arjuna is more someone that we can relate to. His challenges, similar to what we face sometimes in different ways. Another thing which is unique about the Gita is, the teaching is not given in some cave in a mountain where both the teacher and the student are extremely at peace and, you know, perfectly still. In the middle of the battlefield. Right here, right now, you have a million things you have to accomplish. And here the teaching is given to you on how to live effectively and then transcend this life also. So it starts us from where we stand. It doesn't talk from the very high exalted levels, the mystical language used in the Upanishads. So then the Gita becomes more relatable, right? Because that's what our life is. We're juggling 10 million things. How many people today also, they'll be like, you election weekend. The roads will be so jammed. People got holidays or more, they're going back to their hometowns. Should we go Geeta Ashram? Maybe not. Who will get stuck in the jam? Maybe people thought like that, the roads were clear. There was no jam, we came so easily. So in this way, we all know what it feels like to be an Arjuna. We are all Arjunas only ultimately. So this puts the Gita in a very relevant position for our growth. And most people will say, Meenalji, our day-to-day life also feels like a battlefield only. Yes, sometimes it is. So you know, you have good days and you have bad days. So it might not be a literal battlefield, not a literal war, but we do face our challenges, don't we? We're all stumped sometimes like Arjuna. We don't know what to do. We're confused. So Guruji says beautifully, this Gita has inspired so many people in so many different contexts. We've seen freedom fighters, social reformers, Vinoba Bhave, Gandhiji, and even Lokmanya Tilak. They've all written commentaries. And at different points, they've all turned to the Gita for their answers. So from whichever walk of life you come, the Gita has something to offer you. And we see these great acharyas, Vishishtadvaita and Dvaita, and also Bhagavan Adi Shankara, Advaita Vedanta. They've all written commentaries, and they have all emphasized based on their interpretation and understanding of the philosophy. And we've seen bhaktas write, and they say it's all about Krishna, right? And how Krishna has saved the devotee. Because the promise is what? Name bhakta pranashyati. That's what Bhagavan says, right? My devotee will never perish, Arjuna. So bhaktas have written commentaries, how beautifully. And we see later day sannyasis also written based on the current day context. But what is a sadhaka's vision? When I consider myself a sadhaka, what is the vision of the Gita that I have to take? It is a manual of self-unfoldment which brings about total fulfillment. Anybody here doesn't want total fulfillment? Everybody wants total fulfillment. We seek it in many, many places, thinking it will be there. Ultimately, it's a mirage. I was talking to somebody. They say when you get married, when you're young and you get married, it seems so wonderful. 30 years later, you're wondering why I got married. So it never promises you what you think it's going to deliver. So in that way, we all seek fulfillment in so many ways. So this Gita tells us finally where fulfillment is. So it is a Margadarshak Grantha, that which shows you the path. So Guruji, nobody puts it like Puja Guruji Swami Tejo Maharaji. I'm a huge fan. So he says, in life we have to do two things. One is we have to face life. Whatever comes over which we have no control, now you have to gracefully face it and handle it. The other thing you have to do is you have to build life. It's not just about facing, it's not just a battlefield, it's also building it such that you fulfill your interim aspirations, right? And you gain satisfaction from all that. So two things you have to do with life. You have to face life and you have to build life. Now, to be able to do these two things, we need guidance. And we need to understand what it means to live a fulfilled life first. So again, quoting Guruji, he says, to live in such a way that we are a blessing unto ourselves and unto others. This is fulfillment. And many a times we are stumped as to what to do. When we face something, how many times we are near crumble. We don't know how to even begin to address what it is that is, we are facing. And there are times even when we are building life, how many decisions, how many crossroads? Left, right, left, road not taken, what do we do, right? So many times we find ourselves in the middle of confusions and we need answers. Sometimes people cannot give me a direct answer, but they can give me the right foundation to think from and make the right decision that works based on my vasanas, right? So this is what the Gita gives us. It gives us that foundation from which we need to think from. See, Guruji says, when you're building a house, what are the two things which are important when you're building a house? Foundation. Foundation must be strong, otherwise the building will be not very fit to live in. What else? I'm going to hint things that come from China. The quality of the material. Today our leader came to the ashram. He came and he said, Kaka, lampu sudah rosak dalam toilet now. I said, every 3 months lampu rosak in the toilet. I tell you, these Chinese made bulbs. And there were years when I remember the Kalimantan light would probably go off like once in 2 years or 3 years. That time it got, Appa, light is gone. And my father would come and clap. So I've only seen these scenes once in 2-3 years. Now every 3 months I'm pulling out the ladder in my sari. So, the quality of the materials, right, is what is required when you're building a house. Foundation, one. Secondly, the material that you are using. This is just a house. Imagine life, same thing. Foundation and material. Now what does the Gita give us? It gives us these two things. Gita gives us the foundational knowledge which leads to a complete vision of life. It tells us what that supreme goal is. It tells us that is absolute good. It tells us what is absolute good. I'll go into that a little bit more. The other thing it tells us is what are the values which we need, which is the material, not China made. So authentic values that will actually take you to where you need to go. So vision and values. This is what Gita gives us. To face life and to build life, you need the foundation and good materials. And the foundation and the good material is a complete holistic vision telling us what this journey is, what this purpose is. How many times we ask, why are we born? What are we supposed to do with this life? Does it all just go in this cycle and then end one day? Right? So what is the vision? What am I meant to achieve? Why did Bhagavan put me here? And what are the values, which is the tools that I need to achieve whatever I am meant to achieve? So this vision and values the Gita gives us. Based on this, we build life such that it takes us to that fulfillment we seek, right? So this is where we're going with the Gita. And you see, if you think about Arjuna, yeah, and I want us to apply this to our context, did his circumstances change? He's standing in the middle of the battlefield. Bhagavan is giving him the knowledge. Did the outer circumstances change? What changed? Inner transformation took place. The perspective with which he viewed the situation changed. That allowed him to tackle it effectively and ultimately achieve the purpose that he was meant to achieve, having to confront that situation successfully, right? Without faltering and having taken the wrong path and then, wandering down the lane lost, right? So this way he managed to correctly address the situation. Outer circumstances did not change. More often than not, we pray to Bhagavan, we say what? Bhagavan, let things outside change. Think about it, how many things only can Bhagavan change? One. Secondly, if it changes, are you sure that 100% guarantee you're going to get that total happiness that you were looking for? Not necessarily, Sometimes the worst thing that has happened to you ends up being the best thing that has happened to you on that day. Correct? Then you end up thinking, oh, thank God this happened, then I got distracted, I didn't go there, then I would have got caught in that. Thank God. How many times retrospectively we've seen this in life, right? So in this way, it's not necessary for the outer circumstances to change. It will not change either. Karma phala Bhagavan will deliver. Because you've already done the karma for it. You have to reap. But if my vision changes, then I can confront it correctly. And it will become that stepping stone for me to take one step higher. Right? So in this way, if you think about the Gita, it's a before and after advertisement. So you see bald people, when they're trying, they want hair to grow and this hair tonic and all that stuff. One picture they'll show completely bald. The next picture you show hair full. There is a full crop of hair on the head. So similarly, how does Arjuna start the Gita and what situation do we see him? Broken, begging and crying. How does he end? Let's go. Krishna, you lead, I'll follow. Right? So we see, and it's said that where Krishna and Arjuna are, prosperity and your absolute good will be there. Last verse of Gita, right? So in this way, what better advertisement can there be? Before and after. This is what we want. We want to be able to confront life effectively. So this I'll give as an introduction to chapter 1. Now we'll go into what the verse breakdowns are, right? So the first one we see starting with a question from Dhritarashtra. The second to the 11th verse is soliloquy by our dear despot Duryodhana. Him saying whatever he knows about how brilliant he is and how everyone there is there to die for him and how, he has everything assessed and how in the end Bhishma is the only solution, at least that one thing he got correct. He knows without Bhishma nothing is going to happen there. But he insults everybody else in the process, including his teacher. 12 to 19, the conches are described. All the different names of conches. How many times I wondered, wow, why chapter 1 got so many conch names? But it was interesting to read those names of the conches also. 20 to 27, Arjuna's bravado collapses. He first comes and he says, show me the battlefield, Krishna. Krishna Bhagavan goes and puts it right in front of Bhishma and Drona. Finish. Two people who he owes his life to and loves to bits. Cannot fight now, already trembling. So everything, complete nervous breakdown happening there. My lips are dry, my hands are shivering, my bow is falling, I cannot stand, my head is spinning. We've all felt this, when we confront a really terrible situation, we all feel this. Palms become sweaty. It's a nervous breakdown. And this continues 28 to 32 and then 33 to 47. Goes on and on and on. Sometimes when we're really confused, we just want to get everything out of the system. At that time, what do? You just let the person get it out of the system. They're going to blabber, let them blabber. No choice. Everything has to come out. So in this way, Arjuna goes on and on about what? The case against the war. He's saying, no, murdering, I'm going to be, murderer of my own family, the people who raised me, I'm destroying family units. It's going to lead to a degradation of culture, unlawful society, impure women, admixture of castes, fall of ancestors, hell. Oh, Krishna, what a terrible plight we are in, So the first question I'll ask everybody, and I'll open this to the audience, you can just shout out your answer. Why is Arjuna falling apart in the last minute? Doesn't he know all this already? How long they were discussing the war? In fact, they planned it for 13 years. And then after that, finding the allies, getting ready. In fact, Arjuna is the one who will completely convince Yudhishthira. In fact, he'll get angry. Because Yudhishthira is the one who will say, the oldest brother, unless we're absolutely sure war was the solution, and we have explored all other avenues, I don't want war. Despite what has happened to Draupadi. That's how magnanimous Yudhishthira was. He wanted to be very clear. When he walked onto that battlefield, he knew there was no other choice. Whereas Arjuna was like, what is this? Isn't that one reason enough that they dragged Draupadi like that? You need to give them, more reasons for them to continue with their dharma. What are you talking about? So all the while he was the one who was countering it. So why now? What is causing this breakdown? Nothing new, right? Why? Anybody, you can just shout out the answer. Wasn't he aware of these circumstances? Yes, please. Huh? Huh? Okay. Good point. So what he's saying is, Arjuna didn't see ground level reality. He had a tinted vision. From somewhere he was seeing, and Uncle very nicely put it as the ivory tower, right? So ground level reality Arjuna had not seen. What else? Were there any other reasons why he was suddenly panicking at that moment?
Emotions and attachment concept.
Oh, come on. But weren't these attachments there before? Did he not love Bhishma and Drona before? He did. Didn't he know that he would have to kill them before he walked onto the battlefield? Theriyum thane? Bhishma is the commander of that army. Theriyum. So why? Why now? Why here? What's happening? Huh? Sorry? He's disillusioned. So like what first uncle had said, he had not digested the full implication of a situation. He was saying, war, 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 Draupadi, war, Draupadi, war, Draupadi, war. That's all he could see. And all that angst from having been bullied since his childhood, the amount of betrayal sitting there, all of it comes slamming into the surface, and he had not been able to stand back and take a full view of the situation, a holistic vision, for which you need a certain amount of impartiality, which Yudhishthira had. He was able to. That's why when Yudhishthira walked onto the battlefield, he didn't crumble. He walked up, he saluted Bhishma and Drona, did his pranams, and then got onto his chariot and said, now let's fight. No confusions, very clear. Right? Second thing was the fear of failure. When you're finally there, even for the greatest performers, even if you're a veteran actor, when you get on the stage, your basement will start shivering a little bit. So here that fear of failure has cropped up. And the third thing is that faulty perception of oneself and the situation. See here, he is saying that I am going to kill my family members and we are fighting for wealth and kingdom. Is that true? Is that what they are fighting for, wealth and kingdom? Are they fighting their family members, or are they fighting those who have contributed towards adharma? So where we stand, where is our vision? Correctana edathila nama paarvai irukandradhu nama paakkanum in the situation you made. So Arjuna's vision itself has rocked here. He's not looking at it correctly. If a judge sitting in court, instead of looking at the person as a criminal, sees his son, will he be able to deliver justice? He won't. Is it right? From the seat of a judge, what is his job? To see the person there who has been charged with crimes, not whether the person is your relative. So here the vision was not correct. Here Arjuna is a warrior of dharma. It's not just his wife Draupadi that was insulted. She was Chakravartini. If they can do that to an empress, can you imagine how they treat the women in the kingdom? And what is the job of a Kshatriya? It is to always confront adharma. They are born with those traits and they are meant to do exactly that. And that is the higher vision, the higher responsibility also. Why? Because it affects so many people's lives. So here, even if that person is your grandfather and your teacher, if they are on the side of adharma that is going to lead to misery and chaos for the larger, then isn't it your job as a Kshatriya to confront that? That vision is lost. So the importance of that holistic vision and the partiality that will allow you to have that. So this is where we see Arjuna is now stuck. So Guruji always says, our troubles always begin with wrong thinking, where we've not seen the situation correctly, right? Now how do we cultivate right thinking? Many times we do this. We will superimpose, this person did it because of this reason only, I am very sure. For all you know, the person did not do it for that reason at all. But we have superimposed that vision and we have made our decisions. Have we taken a step back and assessed the situation? Now for us to be able to do this, what do we need for that kind of right thinking to form? And this the Gita gives us for that holistic vision, right? Another thing is, when you're caught in this kind of a catch-22 situation, if you don't have the answers, go to someone who does. No prestige issues. Reach out. This is that point of surrender where, what does Arjuna do? Krishna, you sort it. You help me. Because right now I am so confused, I'm not thinking straight. Sometimes we should have the ability and the grace to do this. And then reach out for help at the right place. Sometimes when we want, when we're thinking a certain way, we like to go to people who will help us justify that train of thought. We don't like going to the people who will challenge that view of ours and say, maybe you're looking at this wrongly. At that time, we won't like the person. We'll dismiss their view, we'll judge and question the entire basis of their character, and we'll say this is not a good person to consult. We like going where people will tell us, no, you are correct, that person is terrible. Then we feel very good. Go to an impartial person with the correct way of thinking that can help you. So we see that Arjuna did the right thing. At least he went to Krishna and said, Krishna Sharanam, Hari Sharanam. Now you have to help me. And even with the attitude of surrender, if you have the right person and the absolute attitude of surrender, great. Then very easy to teach. But at least if you have the capacity where you're willing to listen but expect to be convinced, that is good enough. And that's the attitude that Arjuna goes with. He doesn't immediately says, yes, Krishna, 3 bags full. No. He questions Krishna at every stage. And it is that inquiry that leads him to form his own convictions. Because somebody can tell you their view, but unless it has become your conviction, will you live up to it? So this at least we must have. I'm willing to listen, but I expect to be convinced, and I'm going to go through the processes of convincing myself logically, right? So this much we see that Arjuna has arrived at. We're blessed in this human birth because we have the privilege of choice. But to make the right choices, we need the right kind of wisdom. And that we must always ensure that we remain connected to. That's our responsibility, right? Satsang, Guru, Mahatmas, Shastra. So one way or the other, our thoughts are aligned in the right direction. Now, so first thing we'll have to do is think about what is absolute good. You know, the funny thing about life is, good and bad is always relative. But there is an absolute good in all of it. So if you think about it, sugar. It's good for some, not good for some. But good health is good for everybody. Correct? So sugar may be relatively good or bad, but good health is absolute good. Everybody wants it. Similarly, we may like a person, we are not agitated by them. Another person may dislike that person's company because they find it terribly agitating. Now, how we view a person's company is relative. But peace of mind everybody wants. I want to be able to be at peace in my surroundings. The one everybody wants. We are all interested in different subject matters. One person might find something very interesting, the different person might find that totally boring. But clarity of thought everybody wants. Whatever you understand, you want to know correctly. Correct? And why do we do all this? Ultimately, we want to be happy. Somewhere it gives us some kind of fulfillment and happiness. So happiness is good for all. So the path that we choose may be different. But happiness is absolute good. So knowing what is absolute good is what is going to take us to happiness. At the physical level, absolute good is health. Mental level, peace of mind is absolute good. Intellectual level, clarity is absolute good. And at the highest level, knowing my infinitude is the highest good. So the right vision and this foundation of right thinking Gita gives us. It tells us what is absolute good. That's why we see chapter 2, how does Bhagavan start? Nobody is born, nobody dies, Arjuna. Nobody kills, nobody is killed, Arjuna. Highest truth he gives first. Why? Because that is absolute good. Knowing that means you will be free of your travails, you will be free of samsara. But are we ready for that? Maybe not. Why? Values we need to put in place. Correct? That's purity of mind, values. So then, Arjuna has given the knowledge. What kind of values? How do you cultivate it in yourself? What is the means to cultivate these values? And then the knowledge will make sense to you. Until then it won't. Knowledge of your own infinitude. So in this way, that vision of absolute good is given to us by the Gita. And then subsequently, what are the values that need to be in place for us to realize this vision? Now another question I'd like to ask everybody is, all these points of conflicts that Arjuna raises. Society will fall apart, culture will go awry, there will be many helpless children, helpless women will become, Strishu Dushtashu Varsneya, he'll say there will be immoral women, it will lead to caste admixture and all that. Are these valid points? Place it in the context of that era and answer me. Are they valid? Valid or not? Case against the war. For him at that time? No, but generally also, we don't want women to suffer, we don't want children to suffer, we know what the outcome of war is, he's just listed it down for us. So is it justified? Does Arjuna have a case? Huh? War is never justified. Anybody else? Even in the context of the Mahabharata, you think? Sorry? At that period of time is justified. What do you mean by the period of time, sir? The situation he is in.
Know what is right and what is wrong.
What is right and what is wrong?
Whether right or wrong.
Okay. Anyone else? Does Arjuna have a case when he's arguing? Anybody lawyers here? Based on his thinking, he has a case. Fair enough. But even generally, we'd say we don't want these kind of things to happen in society, right? But why do we say that in this case why does Krishna throw the case out and says it's moot? Why? One person, but he's fighting? He's fighting against adharma. Sorry, somebody else said something. Yeah. So you're saying that any cost dharma has to be upheld, right? That's what you're saying, and his job is that. Okay. Okay. Now, another reason Arjuna is saying all this suddenly is why? Because he wants to run. So suddenly all this list is being given out. Why? I don't want to kill my grandfather and my teacher. Always drill down to the bottom of the problem. Sometimes we find ourselves also, this is, finally you go to the bottom, you ask, what is causing all this? You go down to that bottom, you don't want to confront that question. There you have to go down and see, what is the actual problem here? Have you seen we do this sometimes? That these million excuses will give. Actually, what is the crux of what is causing our discomfort we don't want to go to? Here he just wants to run. He doesn't want to have to fight his grandfather and his teacher. So suddenly caste admixture, all this is coming. They are valid problems, I'm not saying no. But like auntie and uncle have beautifully said, it is for dharma that they are trying to re-establish a dharmic kingdom. All this you are trying to safeguard at the cost of what? Adharma ruling everywhere. Really? At whatever cost. Even Bhagavan says, I come to uphold dharma. Right? So in this way, Arjuna has to now establish dharma. So here, Arjuna has no right to give these arguments, especially because he is not giving it out of these true, pure feelings or worries for all this. Right now, he is giving because he wants to run. That's why Gurudev says very beautifully in his commentary, if Arjuna's vision was truly Buddha-like, he would have from the very beginning showed vasanas of ahimsa. But you were born with a warrior spirit. How many wars before this you fought? That time you thought about caste admixture and women falling and all that. At that time you were clear. Dharma. I have to fight this war. Because here you have attachment, suddenly your vision is clouded. Swami Mitrananji always says, turn the situation around and say, if Duryodhana gives the same dialogue, no, Krishna don't want to. You know how many women will be left bereft, how many children won't have fathers, caste admixture will be there, your Krishna society will fall apart. What will we say? Appa buddhi vanduche, kadasila Sami, we will say that. We'll finally say, thank God you came to your senses, now let's stop this war and let Yudhishthira have the kingdom. But when Arjuna says it, it is unacceptable. Why? Because he's trying to run from the case of fighting a dharmic war. This question comes, that's why I'm addressing this right now, because when all this, the bulk of the chapter is this, Arjuna putting out a case, right? We have to realize that he doesn't have a case. And why? If Duryodhana says this, right, very good. Arjuna says this, buddy, you're trying to run. You have to establish dharma, right? That is why Bhagavan says, there is no case for you, Arjuna. Fight this war, you must. At a personal level also you must. At the level of for the goodness of society and world also you must. Now, when we think about this, Bhagavan is asking Arjuna to fight. And there's this common belief that then people think, oh, the Gita actually says that justifies war. This question comes up sometimes. What do we feel? Do you think so? What does Krishna mean when he says fight? How does it apply to us? Fighting for a higher cause? So how does it apply to us on our daily basis? Because we are Arjunas. Standing up for what is right. Correct. When we face our challenges, do we take a flight or do we stand and fight? Do we confront and do we conquer successfully? Is running ever an option? Because see, vasanas will not let us go. In Arjuna's case, he has Kshatriya vasanas. Can you imagine if he chooses, he said what? I want to become a mendicant. Do you think he'll be at peace if he becomes a mendicant? His vasanas won't allow him. You know, Krishna himself will say, you'll be burning down the forests that you are going to go and inhabit. Because your anger will be such. So I then recognize our vasanas we must. Confront our situations we must. We can't run. But confront it with the right vision. If you see the whole of the Mahabharata, there is no perfectly good person. All of them had weaknesses, including Yudhishthira. Including Yudhishthira, they had weaknesses. we'll get to that later, Uncle. But what is the difference between the Kauravas and the Pandavas? Along with weaknesses, the Kauravas had wickedness. The Pandavas had weaknesses, no doubt. But what did they do? They accepted those weaknesses. They were willing to confront the effects of it. Whatever I have to endure as the consequences of my errors. I am willing to endure them, face the effects of them, right? Willing to admit, willing to face the after effects. Krishna could have just magicked them out of the 13 years, no? They endured. And it also became a period in which they gained the necessary girth required for them to confront the Kauravas. So this is the difference between the Pandavas and Kauravas, and it's a question we ask ourselves. Having weaknesses is not wrong. Not being perfect is not wrong. But do I have the courage to admit up to those weaknesses? And am I willing to do the penance necessary for me to wean myself from those weaknesses? This makes the difference between the Pandavas and the Kauravas. And do I superimpose and cause others misery? Which is what the Kauravas ended up doing, isn't it? At the young age, they were willing to kill Bhima. Right? So along with the weaknesses, there were wickedness. That one will get us into trouble. If we have weaknesses, but we're willing to learn and we're willing to grow, that's what puts us on the side of the good. So when we assess ourselves, and even when we're looking at others, this is the difference we have to see between dharma and adharma. Because there's no perfect paragon of virtue unless we're talking about Mahatmas. But generally, where do we stand? And what are the motivations that pulse within us? What is the foundation of my thinking? This is a question that every person can ask. See, Bhagavan always has a heart which embraces you even if you have weaknesses. But if you are willing to grow. That's all Bhagavan asks. Be willing to grow. So we've seen the point, the question we were asking was, is the Gita actually propagating war? It is not. It is asking us at every point to confront life, to rise up to dharma, and to resist weaknesses within and without. At every point, do we live in this spirit? Do we embrace the values and the vision given by the Gita? Because that's what's going to get us to our fulfillment. The whole point of the Gita is what? Ultimately, may that vision be my vision. May those values be my values. When we do our Gita class, I always tell whoever attends, I said, Karma Yoga definition, by the end of the 3rd chapter, we can all perfectly give the definition of Karma Yoga, but have we actually started living every moment in that spirit? That's all that makes the difference. So studying the Gita, Bhagavan has prescribed Karma Yoga. Am I living Karma Yoga? How many times have we listened to chapter 3? I myself may have listened to it 20 times, 20, 30 times. Have I actually lived every moment in that spirit? If I haven't, what is the gap? That is my responsibility. Live the Gita. Studying the Gita one side, knowing all the definitions and clarity of thought one side. Have I embraced the Gita way of life? Why? Because that is the key to fulfillment. So this chapter 1 sets the scene of a broken down Arjuna seeking the knowledge of the vision and the values. And it also tells us how, sometimes in the middle of a very tough situation we can lose it. We all identify. Sometimes we can argue a case thinking that, okay, I'm correct in making this decision. Suddenly you realize towards the end all of it was wrong. The clarity of thought. What do we do when we're confused? All this is very beautifully set out in chapter 1. So the last question, and I've finished the session with this. I've stuck to time this time. So if you see the chapter 1, what is it called? Vishada Yoga. How is grief hailed as yoga here? Yoga, we usually talk about positive evolution, rising, all this great values, great vision. Here, Arjuna's grief is being called yoga. Arjuna Vishada Yoga. Why? How is grief yoga? He embraced grief. That's a way to look at it. What else? You turn to the Lord. Yes. What else? What is the benefit of hitting rock bottom? Yeah, there's no way but up. So as much as we hate the situations where we crumble sometimes, where life gives us a slap to the face, some things are so hard to bear, you ask, do I deserve this, Krishna, really? But from that, from those ashes, the mind can rise like a phoenix, a lot more powerful, provides it confronts the situation, provides it's willing to face, provides it's willing to change, provides it's willing to seek the right guidance, provides it's willing to live up to the guidance. And because grief gets you here, thus grief has become the greatest boon. When you hit rock bottom, there is no way but up. So sometimes when you have the hardest situations in life, know that if Guru and Shastra are there with you, it's going to propel you higher, provides we are sincere sadhakas and sincere adhikaris. And that's the context that chapter 1 sets for us. So grief becomes a powerful transformative tool because it makes you ask the right questions, it makes you surrender to the right place, and becomes the prompter that will bring about the inner change in you. If you're going through any rough time in life, look at it this way and do these 3 things so that you can rise one step above. And then in retrospect, you would have conquered it successfully, hopefully like Arjuna. You know, at the end of Gita, when we ask, did Arjuna actually attain the knowledge of the highest truth? No. But what he did gain was complete surrender to Krishna, one. Secondly, an intellectual understanding of what Krishna has presented. And he said, I am willing to walk the path that you set me. And when finally Purna Vairagya came, he fought the battle, they established a kingdom, and finally Purna Vairagya came when Bhagavan was not there anymore. Bhagavan dropped his body, the Pandavas had nothing to live for anymore. And Arjuna realized, everything that pulsed within me, my entire capacity, was only a blessing of Krishna. And when he realized this, that everything that I have has only been because of him, that complete vairagya towards everything came. And he said, now I want you and you alone. All this while, I also wanted you. Now, I want you and you alone. And so, in the initial stages, we absorb the values by living up to the spirit of karma yoga and bhakti yoga. And finally, when we are ready and the mind is enriched with these values, completely purified, and then when knowledge is given to us, again, right now we all understand intellectually what this knowledge is. But when finally we have the purity of mind, we will embrace infinitude. And at that time, jnana sadhana, shravana, manana, and nididhyasana will accomplish what it's meant to accomplish in us. So the Gita is a beautiful scripture. It starts you off at step 1, from where you stand. So it will give you the highest vision in chapter 2, hint at what are the values you need, and then take you by describing the Sthita Prajna Lakshana. What is the nature of a realized man? How does he express? And then from chapter 3, it beautifully guides you step by step what you need to do, and it develops your vision and your values. So I'll just ask everybody to look at the Gita this way. Over the next 18 days, we are planning to come. Whatever Bhagavan is prescribing, like how you would take a doctor's medicine, see if you can live up to it. Have one takeaway, try and put it into place the next day, try and live up to it, and finally see if your vision is transforming per the Gita way of life. Otherwise, it's nice to get together, but it is a mere study. So I request you all to take this vision of the Gita, and thank you for giving me this opportunity. I wanted to do it slightly differently, instead of just going through it verse by verse, because most people would have heard it so many times. So we'll close with Purnamada, and then hopefully I will see you all tomorrow for what is absolute good. And what is the grace of a jnani. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamada